Ready? Ready?
Scott, obviously you were here last season with the coaching staff. What's it been like for you, kind of adjusting to having a bunch of changes on the offensive side of the ball in the quarter year?
I think it's been great. I think I've been in this league long enough to understand that every year is going to be different. And obviously some more than others. I was here with Coach Pierce last year, obviously through that transition, and built a really good relationship with him. So being able to stay and be a part of this organization has been great. With Luke coming in, installing his offense as well as the rest of the staff. I think it's been a really good transition. Guys have really bought in to what we're trying to do. We've had a lot of good attendance, and guys are really working hard and trying to get better. And that's really what's important this time of year. Obviously you're going for results, and that's what ultimately matters. But just focusing on the process, and getting one day better. I know I'm speaking in cliches, but that's what that is true. There's a reason that people say that, because that's what you're trying to do day in and day out, and that ultimately gets you where you want to be.
Is this offense more toward your roots schematically, or a little bit different, or dramatically different? How would you say that?
I would say it's a little bit more towards it, what I've been a part of in the past. I've been around some different people, obviously, and then I was able to do it for myself for 3 years. But I think in this league, a lot of times you get the best players you possibly can, so you have to be able to adapt your scheme. So I've been a part of a lot of different types of offense, and this offense has some elements of things I've been around in the past. And I think that's what we're doing is. Coach Getsy is doing a great job of, learning our personnel, doing a lot of different stuff. And then, as we get closer to the season, we're going to hone in on, what it is exactly that these guys are good at, and what they can execute and do together. And then you'll see it really kind of take shape for what it is.
Scott, when you have two young tight ends in Mayer and Bowers who are equally proficient in blocking as well as catching the football, what does that do schematically to allow you? Because people can't assume, okay, he's blocking. What does it just allow you, and what does it open up for you?
Well, I think what you said. It keeps the defense off balance. And when you can play in multiple personnel groups, and you have some guys, like Michael, like Brock, they can kind of do different things. You can almost be in two personnel groups at the same time. You know what I mean? So like, if Brock can block, but he can also run routes, you're kind of in 12 and 11 personnel at the same time. So just anything you can do to present more issues for the defense. A lot of that's with formations and motions, but if you can do it with your personnel groups, that just adds another layer to that. And that's what, players that are going to make plays and be dynamic like those guys can do for you.
How much do they help settle the quarterbacks down as well? Because they can be security blankets, but also make big plays.
I think a lot. And I think time will tell on that. And we have other guys, that are going to do that. I think, when you're talking about the pass game in general, my experience, like the guys that get open, they settle the quarterback down. So regardless of their position, I know that there's a lot to be said about the tight end being a security blanket for the quarterback, and that's true. And I think a lot of that's because a lot of times those passes can be closer to the line of scrimmage, so they're not as far downfield, and they're bigger bodies, so they can be easier to throw to. But I've been in situations before we had where like a running back was kind of security blanket because he'd always get open on option routes, and so you get an easy completion, and so that could be true at a lot of different positions. But those are two really good players. They're going to find ways to get open, and that helps.
When you have that component, do you go back and study some teams that were proficient in 12 personnel and utilizing their two tight ends who are viable in the pass game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, you've heard the expression before, this is a copycat league. So you try to study the teams that you're like, and then when you add some new players and maybe your personnel is a little different than what it's been in the past, you do that. You kind of look around the league, last few years and say, all right, who's been in this similar situation? What are the things that they do? How can it fit us? And that's what a lot of times this time of year is for. You're installing certain plays. And obviously, you can't do everything during the game, but you get a chance to see, what you're good at, what your guys are good at, what the coaches feel comfortable with, and then that's what kind of grows into. But yeah, we're people call it copying, I call it research, just to look and just kind of see what works,
What's the biggest thing you've seen in Aiden in year 2?
Aiden's is such a great, focused, young man. I mean, he's obviously a second-year player, but he conducts himself, like a veteran, and he's got a great balance of, understanding leadership and work and talking the right way, but also it's not fake, and he's one of the guys too. He can connect with the other players. I've seen it that way where, a quarterback, especially a young player, is so focused on being the leader that he kind of loses sight of, kind of the brotherhood and the camaraderie that this game is so important, obviously when you face adversity. And I think, the work that he's put in, he's earned the respect and the trust of the other players in this locker room. And then he's also, he's got a good sense of humor, so he's good, being one of the guys and connecting to people as well.
We have to talk about players, players learning a new system and trying to figure that out. When there is new coaches on staff, how tough is it for coaches to kind of learn a new system and learn each other and figure out just the specifics of what everybody wants?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right, because you do talk about players a lot. And obviously we have more time, because as soon as we got the staff in place, we hit the ground running with meetings and, installing the scheme and meeting and talk about exactly what it's going to be. And, I think I always have equated it to learning a new language. A lot of times it's the same thing that you've done in the past, it's just called something different. So that's, you just got to really attack it. You got to force yourself to speak in the new language. And a lot of times I'll go back to what I used to call it however many years ago. And you got to make yourself, talk the other way. And then, inside of that, we might call it the same way. We call it differently. It's the same play, but there's a couple different coaching points that are different. And so you got to emphasize exactly how you want it done in this game. So learning that, that's part of it. It takes work, and it takes time. There's not, it's not just a magic. You don't just translate it right away. But yeah, the meetings, obviously then getting the players on the field, having things happen that maybe you didn't cover in the meeting. So, a coach can make sure he's coaching it the right way in his specific position room. But, that's where this offseason is so important. And the more time we have together, the better.
Scott, Jay Tucker got on the field and flashed last year in his opportunities. What would you say that his next step is as he continues his development?
You're right. Trey was impressive last year, and he's had an outstanding offseason for us. Just being he was towards the end of the year, he's an every down player, but one of those guys that's out there, the receiver's not going to be 100% of snaps, but 65, 70% of the snaps, and just being able to do the whole route tree, because he's got it in him. Obviously you guys know that he can run. But he can stop and then be consistent catching the football, which he showed, as the year went on. But just continue to grow in really all aspects of it. But, playing fast, playing with confidence. I think a lot of times, young players get in this league and you got to kind of prove to yourself, they're like, all right, I can play in this league. And I think that he did that. And then once that happens, kind of the governor comes off and, you see, how good can these guys truly be.
I know it's year 2 for you being back here, but just what's it mean to you personally to be back in Las Vegas, kind of a full circle moment?
Yeah, it's great. Going to school at UNLV, playing for, John Robinson, Hall of Fame coach, was a great experience for me. When I left, I got into coaching in college and then, made my way to the NFL, and Vegas got a team. So, we came back here and played in 21 when I was with Washington, and had a bunch of family come to that game. So a lot of my family lives in Southern California. And then, to be back living here has been really good. My family loves it. We live in the Henderson Anthem area, and we like being out here, again, closer to my side of the family. My wife's from Pittsburgh, so she's a little bit, far from her family, but being out here is great. And I love Vegas. It's a great town.
This is as good as the program has been over at UNLV probably since you were there. So, what is it like for you to kind of watch their success? Yeah,
it's cool. Right when the season ended, I got a chance. I went through their tape because they had a lot of success on offense. And Coach Marion, I've been trying to link up with him. I text him. I got his number from somebody, just talking back and forth. And I watched a lot. They do a lot of stuff in the run game. It's really fun and creative. And we can't, they run a lot of formations that aren't legal in the NFL. You can't have your tackle be the last guy on line of scrimmage in the NFL and stuff like that. But you can get to it a little bit. But anyways, watching that was cool. Like it's just creative. I like stuff like that when guys kind of go outside the box and being able to text back and forth with him. And I got to try to connect with him maybe when we both have a little bit of time off. You know, it's just hard with them and recruiting, and then you know us in the off season, and you know I got to spend time with my family as well sometimes too. So
Did you read the book at all?
I did not. I didn't. No, I got to check that out.
Mark invests a lot of money in the big screens on the side of the field. How do those make you a better coach and make the team better?
So, you know, everybody, we have these seminars of, connecting with Gen Z and all that stuff. And, a lot of that, like one of the things that they teach and they learn about is instant feedback, and I think that's true for everybody, not just the younger generation, but like you want that instant feedback. And, as coaches, like we'll see stuff in practice, and like I know, I'll get a guy after a rep and be like, hey, did you see what happened on this play? And they'll be like, oh, well, I saw it a different way. And now you can just go to the screen right now. You don't have to wait till the film room, and it just buys you that extra, 5 to 7 minutes. And sometimes it's during a water break, sometimes it's in between a play when a guy's not taking a rep, and then you can see. And sometimes it's like, oh, you know what, I was wrong, you were right, to the player. And other times they'll see it and be like, oh, coach, I didn't see that safety rotate, or whatever it was, or, hey, get your hand placement on a reach block or something, but it's directly there and it's right after it's done, and you can kind of get corrections done. And so it's not like, all right, now practice is over, you go in, you shower, you have meetings, you make the correction, the guy takes a note, and then he's got to go wait till the next day to try to fix that technique or recognize that coverage. It's like, all right, bam, now I'm back in my next rep, and it might happen again, it might not, but it's right there, So, obviously technology is amazing. I mean, we all use it, and anything that we can do to get an edge, I think, is great, because the margin's so slim in this league. So, with Mr. Davis being able to invest in us as coaches and players and stuff like that, I mean, it's a big deal, and it helps our guys.
One more thing on UNLV. Obviously, you grew up around football, played a lot, but how much did your time there, and I guess with John Robinson specifically, kind of inform your career in the 20 years?
Yeah, so I liked playing football. I wasn't a great player. I was a backup quarterback at UNLV, and I kind of knew like college football was probably my last stop. So when I made my decision, I always knew I wanted to coach. My dad was a coach. I just love football. I wanted to be around the game. So when I made my decision to go to college, a lot of that was based on learning how to be a coach. And when you're around a guy like that, that's obviously a college football Hall of Fame coach, had a great career at the Rams as a head coach there as well. It was great. We had guys like Bruce Snyder, who he unfortunately passed away a while ago, but he had been the head coach at Arizona State, and great coaching staff. And just watching those guys, and Coach Robinson in particular, just the way he connected with players. The way he communicated was really great to see, and that's something I try to keep with me and take with me as I've gone through my career.
Anything else?
You have a coaching staff, like you have so many coaches that are around, but when you're a passing game coordinator, an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, I guess how are those roles kind of defined? How would you define what you're doing?
It's very fluid. I mean, I have the same role, I have the same title this year as I did last year. I wouldn't say my job is necessarily the same. To me, it's all about the leadership and the structure, and ultimately, like, I'm here to help Coach Pierce and Coach Getsy, be successful. So if there's something that I can do, whether it's, meet with a group of players, whether it's, do some research on a certain offense, whether it's look at a certain area of the field, how can we get better, if it's install in front of the group, those are a lot of different ththings that I'll do. And just, with my, my experience, I've been in this league, I've called plays in this league, I've been, part of different players in offense, like being able to offer, when they need it, like advice or just something, hey, maybe you haven't seen this before, I have, that's just kind of my role. And to me, like, that's what's important. I think, we talk about a lot, like, guys know what's your role, like, how can you help and excel in that role? And that's just what I try to do to help us ultimately win football games. Because I think if that happens, everyone's happy.
Good.
Thank you, guys.